30 seconds, folks. Yeah. Goes about the 30 mark. Just went with it.
Inquiring minds.
All right, it is 6:31 on the 18th of December. Tonight's planning board meeting will come to order. Anna, could you please call the roll?
Jason Berry.
Here.
Mark Richardson.
Here.
Doug Haberman.
Here.
Jeremy Rhodes. David Witham.
Here.
Bonnie McNair.
Here.
All right. First off, we'll have the minutes from the meeting of November 20th. Motion or any corrections?
I'll move to accept the minutes.
Motion from Mr. Richardson. Any second?
Seconded.
Second by Mr. Berry. All those in favor? Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay. All right. Next up, we'll have committee reports. Council report from Mr. Whittam.
Yeah, it's been a few months since I've given you a detailed report, so I thought I'd kind of bundle a few months together here. So apologize in advance for not being here last month and doing a little bit of catch up tonight. Just kind of looked through some council agendas and pulled some stuff from there that we acted on that I think has relationship to our work here at the planning board. The Hawkins Family Revocable Trust that owns the old Somersworth Police Station here on the corner of Station and Main, we did grant them community revitalization tax relief for a period of 7 years. That was unanimously supported by the council. That's just going to help them to do more work in a quicker fashion at that property. As you can see, work has been ongoing, albeit slow, but it is ongoing. In another matter, the council acted to amend the zoning ordinance to establish an overlay district in the area of the National Guard Readiness Center on Blackwater Road. That is related to the subdividing, ultimately, of that property between the ball field and the National Guard property proper for redevelopment into housing units on that parcel. I do believe that's been before the SRTC, so that continues to churn its way through. There are just a lot of layers to that redevelopment project, but that one hurdle has been addressed. In other action, we amended our parking ordinances to allow for snow parking ban, permit parking along Main Street. There are 2 designated sections on Main Street now that we're using in a similar fashion to the parking that we have beside Noble Pines Park and the Jules Bisson Park in Ward 5, where we $20 a month you can have a dedicated space. If you do not have off-street parking and the city declares a snow emergency parking ban, you now have a place that you can go. The city plows around you and then you move it the next day, and so there's an avenue there. So there were a number of additional spots that were gained, some 20 spots that were gained by taking that action. Just trying to utilize available parking spaces on Main Street, which are generally underutilized. So, council took action for a supplemental appropriation for Coast Bus. Every year during the budget process, Coast provides the city with its request for community stipend. The city has struggled to meet their request number. The current fiscal year, we were some $70,000 below what Coast requested. They continue to see cutbacks from both the federal and state government with regard to their funding. So obviously when that happens, the only other source is local funding or ridership. And ridership isn't going to make up $70,000. We have a high ridership population here in the community, both residents that use it and people that travel into our community to use it for businesses and doctors' offices and things of that nature. So council reviewed this, and we did provide the supplemental appropriation of $70,000 to meet the full amount that Coast requested for the current fiscal year. We are funding that with the Municipal Transportation Fund. Every time you register a vehicle here in the city, there is a $5 surcharge that goes into this municipal transportation fund. We've used it for road projects. In this instance, we're using it for the Coast supplemental appropriation. Coast bus service, as we know it, will remain steadfast here in Somersworth for the coming year anyways. So, 261 Main Street, the old Prince's Garage located down here in the Hollow. The city applied for an EPA Brownfields grant to clean that up. As you know, it was purchased by David Baker. The city bought it back for $1 because we can apply for the Brownfields grant. The idea is once we have that property remediated, we'd sell it back to Mr. Baker for development. We were not successful this time around. That is not uncommon. Oftentimes your first whack at the piñata, no candy comes out, so you got to do it again. It's a $750,000 Brownfields grant that we're pursuing. We've been successful in the past with many other Brownfields projects, but typically not in the first round. So we weren't, I guess, surprised by this. We just got to keep trying, if you will. Council took action on a deed restriction on a property at 28 Green Street. It's on the corner of Fayette and Green. Locals have known it as the Creamery. It's an old building. It is not in the historic district. Oddly enough, it is just outside of the historic district, the way it is carved. There was a deed restriction when that property was sold. The city took the property due to tax deed some years ago. We sold the property, and at that time there was a deed restriction that said it could not be used for any residential units. It had to be commercial in nature. City Council tried to understand why that deed restriction was in place. No one seemed to know. The minutes were not terribly indicative as to why that was the case. As such, council took action unanimously to lift that deed restriction. So that is gone from that property. In terms of just some public works projects updates, if you've driven the city, you know that the intersection of High, Indigo, Blackwater, the signal update has been done there, provides for much safer passage there. Our contractor, Electric Light, is still continuing to tweak the timing of that. I think we still have some adjustments to go. It's creating a little bit of backup on High Street, but we'll continue to massage that in the coming months and try to get it to a just right phase. In that same corridor, the city spent just shy of $100,000 to repair manhole covers up through there, which created a difficult passageway. Constitutional Way, if you've driven that, it is not done. I've gotten emails from a number of residents. I can't believe we paid money for that. It's not done. It's a base coat of asphalt. The contractor will be back in the spring to finish off the road, put up the street lamps, other amenities like park benches. And I think there are 8, 10 trees still to be planted in the corridor, grass seed, all of those sorts of things. So it doesn't look pretty right now. It will in the spring, so we appreciate everyone's patience. And we're anticipating bids to be received this month on road resurfacing here in the city. Reconstruction of 2 roads. The most notable is Willand Drive in front of the new Sports Dome. That's looking to be about $1 million road reconstruction project there, as well as sidewalk reconstruction on High Street in the area of Memorial Drive, both north and south, on the westerly side, opposite the side we just completed last year. It's not a very long stretch of sidewalk, but we anticipate that to cost us over $1 million just to fix a sidewalk. So sidewalks are more expensive than roads by far. So we struggle with that, but we're making some headway. So sorry for the long report, but there you have it.
Thank you very much. SRPC, Mr. Richardson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had a very interesting road trip last week to the Downeaster and took a ride from Dover down to Exeter and came back and found out some interesting information that I didn't know about. It's now owned by CSX, the rail line between Boston and Brunswick. It was described to us that they're still getting used to what they now own. And But at the same time, we were told that there would be some track improvements coming in 2025. So could be some delays during the day or cancellations during daytime, allowing commuters to commute while track is being relayed or new track is being laid down. But the time framing on that is yet to be determined. So people who ride it should pay attention to that. A lot of things that I learned about it is each platform in the different towns are managed differently. Some are owned by the towns, some are owned by private entities, some are leased, all kinds of combinations for the platforms. So that was just kind of, I would have thought it would have been in uniform all the way up and down the line, but it's not. But it seems to work in it seems to be working, whatever they're doing in all the towns. It was pointed out in Dover that it's often mentioned by folks coming to the planning board of why they're coming to Dover for the development for their business and that kind of thing is because of rail access to Dover. So that was pointed out to us by the Dover development folks there that attended. In Durham, obviously, the students are primary riders of the Downeaster. Exeter is just a platform. There's no amenities there. Each platform tries to have at least someone from the local community there as a greeter, so that when people, and this is on all the platforms, as a greeter, so that when the trains come into town, if people have any questions getting off about how do I get from here to there, there is at least someone there to help them out. And that's particularly true in Exeter because it was kind of pointed out that it's a little bit off the beaten path from downtown, so people may need to know exactly how to get down there. So again, it's an individual that is hired to do that particular job and kind of an interesting position to have as people are coming and going from the train. Fiscal year 24 was their largest year for ridership yet, over 598,000 riders during that fiscal year. 4% increase over their previous high, which was just before COVID, the fiscal year before COVID. So that's good news. Also, obviously, their highest revenue year since they've been going on. So those are kind of nice things to know. It's working. I was all excited about it. Never been on the Downeaster. You know, it took about 20 minutes to get to Exeter. That's about it. And you know, we had stops and we had presentations at each one, starting at Dover and then in Durham and then in Exeter, and then it was just a straight shot coming back, other than stopping for passengers, obviously. So it was a great way to spend a morning. Heard a lot about how people are using it to promote their economic development. So it was a morning well worth spent.
Field trip for adults.
It was a field trip. We had like 35, I think, participants that went on the field trip. So from the SRPC. Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Berry, eyes on 30.
No report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And Mr. Horton, I'm assuming did not leave us a report for housing? Okay. Excellent. Any other committee reports that I neglected in there? Moving forward then to old business. Ms. Mears, any old business for us?
None this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Moving forward then to new business. Item 4A, Dahab Falafel Company LLC is seeking conceptual review for a restaurant and bakery on a property located at 506 High Street in the Residential Commercial District, Assessors Map 40, Lot 09, Site number 27-2024. Ms. Mears, any?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant is proposing to convert the existing building to a restaurant bakery use. The property is located at the corner of High Street and Calwin Drive, with the driveway accessing onto Calwin Drive. The existing site is designed with 8 parking spaces. This application will be required to be reviewed by the planning board, as a waiver from the number of parking spaces will be required. That's why they're coming in for the conceptual design. The current use at the property is retail. The existing building is about almost 1,500 square feet. And And for restaurant, 1 space per 3 seats, plus 2 spaces for every 3 employees on the largest shift.
Thank you. Do we have a representative from the business here to present? Sir, I'm not sure if the microphone's on. If you don't have a green light, just press the green.
I don't. How's this?
Oh, much better.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Yeah, let me just pass these around.
Thank you.
So my name is Asya Dorian. I own a Middle Eastern food trailer located in Durham right now. The business name is Dahab Falafel, and we are looking to expand into a brick and mortar. We're looking at potentially buying this property. My biggest concern was parking. There's actually 2 main things. One is parking, which I don't want to go and buy a property and then not be able to convert it into what we want to do there. The other thing is it's in front of a residential area, and I'm not sure if it's zoned commercial, but I don't know how the town will feel about that, the neighborhood and all that. And then the third part is we would like to cut a opening into the basement. Right now, the basement has only access from the inside. So if things move forward, both for storage purposes and for fire safety, it's going to need some sort of a doghouse entrance. I put a little orange X on the potentially location of that. That's where I'm at. I just don't know. The parking is really the biggest thing. Just to point out, I don't know any properties in Somersworth, but in Dover there's a few that have the same issue. If you think of Subway next to Planet Fitness, and right next to it there's a Chinese or Asian restaurant that has the same kind of issue. Limited parking spots. And then, they seem to be managing that, but I don't know how the town feels about this.
Okay. Thank you. Open to questions or comments from the board. Mr. Whittam.
Thanks. Actually drove out to the site today and drove into the parking lot and kind of looked around, and it's maximum use of the site. I'm not terribly concerned about conflict with the residential abutters, and I say that not because I don't want to hear what they would have to say, but I think about intensity of uses, and I don't see a bakery as being terribly intense use. I can think of lots of uses that would be much more intense, that could be by right situated on that piece of property. Again, you're not envisioning changing the property. It was a wireless phone store, people coming and going. So I don't see the use that you're proposing to be much different than that. So I guess the question I have with regard to parking, I could see the parking being used, and I hadn't likened it to like the Subway or the other restaurant that you mentioned down on Central Ave in Dover, but I see a bakery as a lot of people coming and going, stopping in, picking up my order, browsing the cabinet of goodies and getting a package to go. If there's going to be dining inside, well, now I think there could be some issue, because now you're going to have stacking up of cars, people staying for a bit more time. So I guess that's a question for you. How do you see it being used? Is it come and pick up what you want, or will you have tables and service there?
So, yeah. So we are planning on having a few tables. Not there's not going to be table service. It's going to be counter service. Without having an architect draw the inside yet, I'm thinking about 6 to 8 tables. Another point about parking is we have been in contact with the dentist that is right next to there, and they're open to leasing spots. So at least for employees, if not, after hours for customers, that could be a type of solution. It's not, maybe not be perfect.
If the bakery stuff doesn't work out, you should be a mind reader, because I was thinking about that today as I was parked there. You're right, the parking lot for the dentist office, it's separated by maybe a foot.
Right.
It is right there, and I
It's
thought...
only open one day a week.
And I've never seen that parking lot intensely used.
Yeah.
And I know we've had conversations other places here in the city about shared parking, right? The parking lot isn't used. I think the most recent was the tobacco, wine, grapes, hops store on High Street, where Dunkin' Donuts is busy in the morning, they're busy at night. They share the same parking spots, but they're busy at different times.
Yeah.
And I thought that could be a real worthwhile use there. Maybe not for customers, but for staff, right? So
Definitely
that your
for
staff
staff,
is not taking up the lot.
So they're open to it. They're not, there's no, again, until I actually put an offer on the property and we're not going to know exactly what the details are, but
Another option for staff that I was thinking about, and perhaps it's a little bit less convenient, is directly across the street is the Continental Buffet. You have the what used to be the Staples store. There's hundreds of spots that are not utilized there that are, if you could throw a baseball, you can hit your place,
including
there, right?
the Market Basket
Sure.
plaza there. I mean, there's endless spots there.
So here's where I'm going. I love the idea of a bakery here. I think it kind of fits. I think this building is going to be tough to use for many things because it's a compact site. It's not the biggest building. I think this is something that could work there. I think you have the right idea in terms of a parking plan. I think if you come back before us formally, that's exactly what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that parking plan, and particularly for your staff. I'd like staff not to park on site. I'd like staff to park elsewhere. Keep this open for visitors. 2 a.m. when the baker's there, right? I don't care, but during open hours, staff parks elsewhere. There's a plan for that. It's a formal plan. And I think I could be very amenable to that. And again, in terms of the neighborhood, I'm not concerned about that. I don't think that this is an intense use, so I'm not too concerned about that. So I appreciate you looking at Somersworth, and we'll try to work with you the best we can.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Richardson.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not going to repeat what Dave said, but those are a lot of things that were on my mind. And I too went out there today and drove around, so we
I
missed each
appreciate
other.
you guys doing that.
But the one thing I noticed were the trees out in front. They're in kind of sad shape. 2 of them are just sticks, and the other ones are really kind of sad. And if there's something you could do to improve that, the look of that, that would be nice to see. And unfortunately, I'm thinking if maybe those trees got to go and something else goes in their place, but something along the lines to at least give us some greenery that's out there.
Yeah, I would like to see that.
Are you planning on using the same sign? I mean, obviously changing the sign, but the same.
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it seems to fit. I don't see a reason why not to.
Okay. Thanks.
Mr. Abram?
Yeah, just your hours of operation, do you have kind of a rough idea when you'll be using that?
So it's a tricky thing. I would like to be open 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Can I staff it for these hours? Probably not, at least not right off the bat. So we are thinking of doing a breakfast, so maybe 6 or 7 a.m. until, 5 or 6 p.m.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Okay,
it really depends on staffing it. If I can get the people, because yeah,
yeah,
I mean it's a challenge. Even a trailer in Durham is the challenge during the summer to get enough people, and so we'll see.
yeah. Change of season type hours maybe, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, thanks.
A couple of comments that I had, largely echoing what Mr. Whittem raised. I think you're right to question, are there going to be issues with being right next to a residential area? We have had a couple of businesses in a similar situation on High Street where residents did raise concerns. Those were much more intensive uses, loud tools, machine shops, or auto shop sort of situations. With the type of business you're looking at, unlikely to be a major issue. Like Mr. Whittem, I am extremely happy that you have already thought about the parking and looked at ways to alleviate the strain of staff parking as well. That would have been the only real concern I would have had with this if you had a large number of tables with a small amount of parking there and no separate place for staff. That would have been an issue. Around the basement access, that's more of a code issue, I would suspect, but I'm sure it's something that could be worked out. The only thing I think that I would personally be concerned about here is you're going to open a bakery directly on my route home from work. And I've done a very good job of losing weight over the past 2 years, but for the good of the community, I'll take the hit. So
We all have to suffer, you know.
exactly. I know of your output, your work by reputation. I have several friends that work at UNH, and I would personally be extremely happy to see you come to the city.
Thank you.
So with what you've talked about for parking alleviation, I'm sure we could come to a point where it would be approvable.
Great.
Mr. Whittingham?
Yeah, just one more thing to flag for you, just as you contemplate this. The site currently does not have a dumpster. I don't think the phone store generated a lot of trash. It's possible that you would. So dumpster placement may eat up a parking spot. So that's just something to be mindful of unless you have a more creative strategy.
I sort of do. Maybe sharing with the dentist.
Got it? I love these ideas, right?
I
in
mean,
these
they
compact areas.
already have a dumpster on site, and I'm sure it's not filled with the 1 day a week that they're.
Right.
So we may be, we are gonna do. We're kind of big on composting and recycling, so we're gonna have to figure things for that. Probably oil. So yeah, there's definitely a few things that we'll have to figure out.
Right. And
Also with the parking, right now, the handicap spot is all the way, facing the building, it's all the way to the left, where the ramp is all the way to the right, which makes no sense. So we're probably gonna change that.
yeah, and I made that observation too. You're right. The painted handicap spot is all the way to the left, but there's a sign over on the right, and I said they moved the sign because that's where the ramp is. So, yeah, I think there's some things that you could play around with there to make it more
Yeah,
workable.
Those
So.
are small things.
But back to the point that I think everybody here has made, I think this could fit. I think it can work. I think you're going to have to be a bit creative. As one board member, I welcome that creativity. That's what we need to be. So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any other comments? All right, excellent. Thank you for coming in. Thank you. Just to note again, these conceptual reviews are a fantastic way of getting questions answered, and always glad to see one come up.
Just as you say that, Jeremy, is that good enough for staff as you continue to have dialogue with the applicant as to work with him and his team?
Yes, I think
great.
that's very helpful. Thank you.
No, I wanted to make sure that staff had enough information as they continue to talk with you that it would be helpful, and they did, so.
Beautiful. All right, moving on to item 4B in new business. 200 Main Street LLC is seeking a 60-day extension request for site plan and conditional use permit. Approval for a 148-unit residential building with associated parking infrastructure at 200 Main Street in the Mill Yard District. Assessors map 09, lot 282, site number 06-2024, CUP 02-2024. Ms. Mears?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant is requesting a 60-day extension to finalize the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services alteration of terrain permit. This would allow the applicant until March 17, 2025 to meet conditions prior to the final approval. The AOT permit has been submitted and is still under review. Staff recommended that the applicant didn't have to be in attendance tonight because of this is a pretty minor thing. So staff supports this extension request.
Any questions from the board on this item?
I'd move that we grant the applicant the 60-day extension request.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Whittam, second by Mr. Berry. Any comments or questions? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? All right, matter carries unanimously. 4C, any new business before the board other than those two items? Ms. Mears, anything?
I have nothing.
Okay. Moving on then to workshop business. 5A, accessory dwelling unit ADU workshop. So Ms. Mears submitted a copy of the new ADU work. Any items to highlight for us on here?
Let's see. You should have all received my memo. The Mayor's Housing Task Force provided a proposal to the Planning Board in August to propose revisions to Section 19.24 to allow detached accessory dwelling units. There was discussion at the last meeting from the Planning Board back in November to incorporate changes to include Newmarket's example for detached accessory dwelling units to include some appearance standards for attached accessory dwelling units. We did provide you with that language in the zoning, and we just need to have somebody sponsor this to move forward to City Council.
Excellent. Any comments on the latest memo or any discussion on that? Mr. Whittam?
Yeah, thank you. Michelle did an excellent job of kind of what the genesis for this was. As you know, currently we do allow accessory dwelling units here in the city, but they must be attached to the principal housing unit. I think that is the biggest material change here, that it allows for detached ADUs. Think of, in a historic district up on the hill, it could be a barn or a carriage house that gets converted, or in other areas of the city, maybe it's just a detached garage that has space above that you could convert into additional housing units. Thought being, this could be done tastefully. You could have the ADU in a detached barn, garage, or carriage house and not even know it, right? So there's no added implication for parking if the ADU is allowed. It matters not whether it's attached or detached. The parking issue is still the same. So I think this really allows for a whole lot more flexibility. And if you think about the real benefit of an ADU, children entering the workforce, whether right out of high school or getting out of college, we all know that the cost of housing right now is extremely steep. Getting that starter home is much more difficult than maybe it was for any of us. So allowing the adult children to live at home but not live in the house is a strategy. And on the other end of the cycle is allowing parents to age in place with their children. I think there's a real value of that. We know the cost of long-term care and the difficulties of even finding it. So I think this provides flexibility on both ends of that family spectrum. So I fully support this.
Any other discussion on this item?
I just second that. Yeah, fully agree. Yeah. The independent units, I sent the sample to the board, and it happened to be named the Somersworth. So I don't know if you all got a chance to look at it yet, or if it's been sent out.
So with that, I'd move that the planning board accept the recommendation for the amendments regarding ADUs and send it on to the city council.
Motion by Mr. Whittam, second by Mr. Richardson. Any discussion on that? All right. All those in favor? Any opposed? All right.
And I'd be happy to sponsor that.
Excellent. Okay. Any communications or miscellaneous this evening? I think we're on then to a motion if we'd like to close up for the night. Motion by Mr. Berry. Any second? Seconded by Mr. Richardson. It's like, we're going to be here all night. Mr. Richardson seconds. All those in favor? All those in favor? Okay. Any opposed? All right. Motion or meeting adjourned at 7:07, it looks like. Excellent. Thank you very much, all.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year's.
Happy holidays. Bonnie, welcome.